My name is Zara. This story is from the time when Bangladesh was still East Pakistan and a part of our beloved country. My son Ali was given the opportunity to go to Dhaka through his company, and his salary was doubled. At that time, the situation there was peaceful. However, the thought of being separated from my son saddened me. After Ali left, I felt lonely. His salary was decent, and I didn't want him to quit his job just because of me. However, he would insist, "Mother, you will be alone here. I don't want to go to East Pakistan. I'd rather leave my job." But I didn't allow him to quit. And so, he left for Dhaka. 3 years later, when he returned, I realized it was time to get him married. I had spent my days waiting for him while he had been waiting for someone else. He lived alone there. Though my son had been raised with good values, prolonged loneliness in youth can bring sadness. He too seemed downhearted and dispirited. Seeing the sorrow on Ali's face, I started searching for a suitable girl for him. He was on a 1-month leave, and I wanted to see him as a groom before he returned. When I shared my wish with Ali, he simply said, "Mother, as you wish. But please remember one thing. Don't choose a girl from a wealthy family. Bring a daughter-in-law from a humble background. Do not let greed influence your decision. Marriages based on greed rarely succeed." Hearing my son's thoughts filled my heart with joy. Ali could only receive company-provided housing in Dhaka if he was married. "Mother, I want you to live with me," he said, "but the company only provides accommodation for married employees." Upon hearing this, I shared my concerns with some familiar women in our neighborhood. Within 15 days, a neighbor introduced us to a good match. At that time, we lived in Faisalabad, while the girl's family resided in Lahore. When I went to see the girl in Lahore, I was deeply moved by her parents' poverty. Out of sympathy, I agreed to the proposal. We decided that we wouldn't take anything from their home except for the girl herself. It was fate that within a year, both of Naima's parents passed away. Before dying, they both made just one request to me: "Please take care of our daughter. Do not let her suffer. She has no one else but you." With a sincere heart, I promised first to Naima's mother and later to her frail father, "As long as I live, I will never let your daughter face any hardship. I will take care of her as if she were my own child." After Ali's wedding, Naima and I moved to Dhaka with him. Ali informed his company that he was now married, and soon after our arrival, they provided him with accommodation. Gradually, we settled into our new home. The bond between me and my daughter-in-law grew stronger. We had no other relatives there, just the two of us, and of course Ali, who would leave for work in the morning and return in the evening. All our neighbors were Bengalis, but we couldn't form any acquaintances with them since we didn't understand their language. Naima was a well-mannered girl, and I wasn't the type to pick fights. We both stayed busy with household chores, and love and harmony filled our home. Ali would return home exhausted in the evening, but the warm welcome from his loving mother and devoted wife brought him peace. Naima, with her affectionate heart, would spend her entire day eagerly awaiting her beloved husband. His arrival felt like the first breeze of spring. If Ali was ever late due to work, Naima wouldn't eat until he arrived. Even though I would insist, "My dear, please eat. Who knows when he'll be back? You've been hungry since morning." She would refuse. She couldn't bear to take a single bite without him. Time passed, and 4 years went by. But despite everything, they were not blessed with children. During this time, we consulted several experienced lady doctors. They all said the same thing. There was no medical issue, and when God willed, they would have a child. Lately, I had noticed that Naima seemed downcast, and her health appeared to be declining. One day I asked her, "My dear, is something wrong?" She replied, "No, mother, there is nothing." But I was worried because my son's happiness and peaceful life were closely tied to his wife. One day, Ali brought home a newspaper, and on one of its pages, there were pictures of children. It was a section dedicated to kids. My daughter-in-law was kissing the picture of a beautiful, chubby baby that was published on that newspaper page. She didn't even notice my presence. Seeing this, my heart filled with sorrow. She was holding the picture to her lips and crying. At that moment, I realized that she deeply felt the pain of being childless, and that was the reason for her constant sadness. Perhaps she had lost hope. I embraced Naima and consoled her. "Don't lose hope. None of the doctors have found any issue with you. Surely Allah will bless you with children when the time is right." When Ali returned home, I told him about the situation. He comforted his wife, saying, "Don't grieve. This is a blessing given by Allah to whom He wills. Just keep praying. If it is not written in our destiny, We should not let it sadden us. We have been blessed with each other's love, and that is a great gift. I constantly reassured my daughter-in-law, trying to lift her spirits, but her motherly instincts longed for a child. Perhaps it was only natural. By then, we had been living in Dhaka for 6 years. During this time, we visited West Pakistan several times. We had our own house in Faisalabad, which was looked after by my cousin. Whenever we visited, I would take Naima to the best doctors in hopes that one of their treatments would fulfill her wish. But still, she remained childless. Near our home in Dhaka lived a man named Kasim, a Bengali who worked as an assistant manager in a factory. Ali had a casual friendship with him, and through him, I got to know his mother. His sisters, Ayesha and Sana, became friends with Naima. In a foreign land, these acquaintances felt like a blessing. Even though East Pakistan was still part of our country, the difference in language made it feel like we were living abroad. Kasim had a young son and daughter who lived with their grandmother. His wife had left him. Outwardly, Kasim appeared to be a kind and respectable man, though we never discussed why his marriage had failed. However, I felt deep sympathy for his innocent children. His son was 7 years old and his daughter, little Aliyah Maya, was only 3. Naima adored Aliyah. The child had also grown fond of her and would often run to our house on her own. Sometimes her father, grandmother, or aunts would come looking for her. This led to frequent visits between our homes. Naima started calling Kasim Barami her brother. I should mention that in Faisalabad, we followed a strict household environment. We did not allow unrelated men to be addressed as brother or maintain close ties. Women observed strict purdah. However, due to little Aliyah, I did not impose such restrictions on Naima in Dhaka. I had no objections when Kasim brought Aliyah over and casually spoke with my daughter-in-law. Since she called him brother, she did not observe purdah from him. Even Ali did not object. Ours was the only family we had formed close ties with in Dhaka. Over time, Aliyah became extremely attached to Naima. Deprived of a mother's love, she began to see my daughter-in-law as a motherly figure. Every morning she would wake up calling out for Auntie Naima. Once she was dropped off at our house, she refused to leave until evening. Kasim himself would come to pick her up. Undoubtedly, children bring joy to life. Aliyah was an enchanting little girl. Her dusky complexion and innocent chatter could melt any heart. Naima would now speak to her in Urdu, and the little one would respond in her own small, broken sentences. Both Naima and Ali showered her with love. Even I eagerly awaited her visits. On days when she didn't come, I would go myself to bring her over. Through this child, our two households grew even closer. One day in the middle of a conversation, Qasim said to Ali, "Seeing the love you and your family have for Aliyah, I constantly pray to Allah to bless you with children as well. If you'd like, I can take you to a sannyasi Baba, a holy man. He gives a special medicine to couples, and inshallah, your wish will be granted." Autad. Many of my friends have had children after taking his remedy. Both the husband and wife need to take the medicine. Just give it a try. Ali firmly responded, "My friend, I don't believe in going to these so-called holy men. I stay away from such un-Islamic practices, and I will not visit him." When he returned home, Ali told me about it. "Mother, Qasim suggested this, but I refused. Who knows what kind of practices that man followed? In black magic, there is no distinction between what is lawful and unlawful." When Naima heard about this, she became restless. "Mother, please come with me. We should at least give it a treat." To keep her heart at ease, I confided in Qasim. One day when Ali was on duty, I took my daughter-in-law along and went with Qasim to that sorcerer's place. He lived in an isolated area near a village, about 40 miles from Dhaka. His appearance resembled that of a wandering ascetic. He asked Naima a few questions and inquired about Ali from me. Then he gave Naima some medicine and instructed, "Take this for 3 days with water." He also recited some mantras and said, "This girl is under an influence, which is why she cannot conceive. I will perform a spiritual ritual, chilla, to counter it." Over time, we visited that Bengali sorcerer 7 times. Each time, he personally prepared a remedy and gave it to Naima. He also handed us some items, instructing us to bury them at home without opening them. On our last visit, something terrifying happened. That very night, Naima suddenly had a violent seizure and her condition worsened. I panicked and prayed, "Oh Allah, please cure my daughter-in-law. I promise I will never take her to that sorcerer again." Ali was also deeply worried. He had no idea what had suddenly happened to his wife. Naima started screaming, fell to the floor, and began convulsing violently, just like a goat writhing in agony when slaughtered. Out of fear, I could not bring myself to tell Ali that we had been secretly visiting the sorcerer and that Naima had been consuming unknown substances from him. After 20 minutes, her seizure ended, and she lost consciousness. Ali carried her to the bed, and she slept through the night while we sat by her, awake and anxious. In the morning when she woke up, her eyes were swollen and bloodshot. Her complexion was so pale that it seemed as if someone had drained every drop of blood from her body. Yet she said nothing about the incident, as if she had no memory of what had happened the previous night. I was utterly terrified. I thought to myself, this is all my fault. What kind of man was that sorcerer? What sort of medicine had he been giving my daughter-in-law that left her in such a condition? Oh, how I wish I had never listened to Qasim. I should have never weakened my faith. I told Qasim what had happened. He replied, no problem. If you and Naima don't want to go back, I will go alone and tell Baba everything. Let's see what he suggests. Maybe he has a solution or a cure. Qasim went to the sorcerer alone. When he returned, he handed me a bottle of water. Baba has recited a mantra over this water. It will counter the effect that has taken hold of Naima. Make her drink it, and she will recover. She will not have seizures again. However, my daughter-in-law had now changed completely. The once gentle and soft-spoken girl had turned into a completely different person. She would throw things in anger, shout at me, and lash out in frustration. It seemed as though she was no longer Naima, but someone else entirely. Her fights with Ali became more frequent, and my poor son grew distressed. He loved his wife deeply. If she even had a slight fever, he would stay awake all night by her side. He would even drink the leftover water from her glass and pray, "Oh Allah, transfer Naima's illness to me and make her well." But Naima did not get better. Ali spoke to his boss and requested a transfer to West Pakistan. Thus, we returned to Faisalabad with Naima. Ali was posted in Karachi, but he took leave from work because he could not leave his wife in such a condition and move to another city. After coming to Faisalabad, Naima's condition worsened. She would cry for hours without reason and would often call out Qasim's name when she was alone. When I asked, "My child, why do you keep calling Qasim?" she would reply, "He was the one who took me to the sorcerer. He is the one who made me sick. Now only he can cure me." Sometimes she would say, "He has cast a spell on me. There is a fire burning inside me all the time. I can't breathe properly. Mother, you don't understand. This is all his doing." Naima was truly unwell. Her condition was beyond scolding or anger. She seemed like a helpless soul, startled even by the slightest sound. Doctors could not diagnose her condition and suggested seeking help from a psychiatrist. Even after consulting specialists, there was no improvement. They prescribed sedatives, which made her sleep. But when she woke up, she seemed even more terrified. My once calm and composed son was more distressed than ever before. I myself had become like a madwoman. Eventually, Ali lost his job, and all our savings were spent on my daughter-in-law's treatment. After every prayer, I would plead for our situation to improve, but peace had completely vanished from our lives. In the end, I realized that I had no choice but to tell my son the truth, so that he himself could go to the ascetic and seek help. When I finally revealed everything to Ali, he was furious. "Mother, I never expected this from you. You always taught me to have firm faith in Allah, yet you fell into the trap of these sorcerers." But with no other option left, I convinced him to take Naima back to Dhaka. Reluctantly, he agreed. We sold our house, gathered the money, and left for Dhaka. Since Ali had lost his company accommodation, we had no choice but to stay at Qasim's house. Surprisingly, the moment Naima saw Qasim, her condition improved. She started acting normal, speaking to everyone in a usual manner. But whenever she looked at her husband, her expression turned hostile. For us, these were days of relief and happiness. I told my son, "I know where the ascetic lives. This time, don't take Qasim with you. Just the two of us will go." I was certain that Naima would never agree to come with us. So we left her at Qasim's house and set off. The ascetic agreed, but said, "I will have to perform another ritual." He asked us to bring bizarre things, a black goat's head, an owl, and other strange items. It was difficult, but we managed to gather them. He then gave us a spell written in animal blood and instructed, "Make her drink this for 40 days. She will gradually regain her senses, and the magic's effect will wear off. But for the ritual to work, I need a lock of her hair and her used clothes. We struggled a lot to gather everything. Late at night, we returned to Qasim's house. The moment Naima saw us, she started screaming, "Go away, I have nothing to do with you anymore. I will stay here in Dhaka. Divorce me. I will not go back with you." But Ali paid no attention to her outburst. We gave her the psychiatrist's medicine and somehow managed to bring her to the airport. Ironically, it was Qasim who gave her the dose that finally calmed her. We returned to Faisalabad. Now she would scream, "Dhaka, Dhaka." But Ali ignored her words. I struggled to make her drink the amulets given by the Bengali sorcerer. At midnight, I would fall into prostration, begging Allah to heal my daughter-in-law. At last, my prayers were answered. Naima began recovering. She became calmer. The madness subsided, but she remained silent, often sitting in one place for hours, not speaking a word. Ali was patient and showered her with love and care. Then one day she finally spoke. She admitted everything, how Qasim had manipulated her, bewitched her, and tried to separate her from Aliso. She told Ali, "He tried to lure me away from you when you were not around. He did all this because he loved your daughter, Aliyah." She revealed more painful truths. Hearing this, Ali's heart shattered. His peace was gone, and his loving heart was left in pieces. Around this time, we received unexpected news. Naima was pregnant, but upon hearing this, she fell silent again. I did not see even a trace of happiness on her face. I wondered why she was so sad. She had always longed for children, so why was she so upset after hearing such big news? When Ali found out, he too became silent and withdrawn. He refused to accept the child, saying, "This is not my child. This is Qasim's child. This is an illegitimate child, and I will never accept it." For several days, he was lost in deep thought. Finally, he came to a decision. He wrote a letter to Qasim. "My wife has gone mad in your love. It would be better if you take her, and I will divorce her." As soon as Qasim received the letter, he replied, "My friend, never make the mistake of divorcing your wife. My estranged wife has returned home. I cannot accept Naima. I cannot marry her." Ali handed the letter to Naima. As soon as she read it, her face turned pale. She broke down into uncontrollable bums, clinging to Ali's feet, begging for forgiveness and cursing Qasim. She kept saying, "He did black magic on me. He led me astray. Now I hate him. I don't even want to see his face." Ali was a man and his pride was deeply wounded. He turned to me and said, "Mother, this woman will never give me peace, no matter what. Even if she turns into gold, she is worth nothing more than a counterfeit coin in my eyes. I cannot live with her. I cannot accept this child. I am not the father." I was heartbroken and speechless. I couldn't bear to see my daughter-in-law crying. She had no one else. We could not throw her out of the house. Then I remembered the promise I had made to her parents. "As long as I live, I will treat your daughter as my own and will never let her leave my home." It was a strange situation, Mom. Finally, I convinced Ali not to abandon Naima at such a crucial stage, especially when she had no one else in this world. I told him she took the sorcerer's medicine because she longed for a child. Maybe, by the will of Allah, she conceived because of that medicine. This is your child, Ali. Remove this doubt from your mind that it is Qasim's child. You have never seen your wife commit any sin, nor have I. Divorcing Naima or separating from her would be unfair. Allah will never forgive us for such an act. My words had an impact on him. He feared Allah, and I sought my Lord's pleasure. So we refrained from abandoning Naima. Gradually, things returned to normal. Naima became the same loving and caring wife she once was. The atmosphere of peace returned to our home. I then advised my son, use the remaining money to start a business. Allah will bless you. During this time, Naima's health began to deteriorate. The child whom Ali had refused to accept, whom he had called illegitimate, departed this world before even coming into it. Once again, we were engulfed in sadness. I suggested to my son that we should go for Umrah. We performed Umrah, and it brought peace to our hearts. Upon our return, Ali found another good job. With the remaining money, we bought a small house in a modest neighborhood. Life returned to its normal flow. Though my son does not love his wife as he once did, he treats her well out of the fear of Allah. I am endlessly grateful that Allah preserved the values I instilled in him. The son who once brought me pride by securing first positions in school and college has once again upheld my dignity. He did not divorce Naima, but continued to treat her with kindness, seeking Allah's pleasure. I believe that my son will surely receive the reward for his righteousness. Now in my old age, Naima cares for me like a daughter. This is the reward of kindness. Allah never lets good deeds go to waste. Naima no longer feels like a daughter-in-law to me. She feels like my own child. Yes, she made a grave mistake, but I also hold myself accountable. Had I not taken her to that sorcerer, none of this would have happened. Perhaps Allah never intended for my son to have children.